known this very prominent victim that told us that she has actually been groomed for 2 years, concurrently ongoing, and she didn't know until she was much older. This guy was from one of her organizations that she is very active in, and he is a very sort of older brother figure to her. They talk a lot. They talk like as if they sort of like a couple. They sweet talk and everything.
And then when we read through them, they are like, there were so many red flags. We really saw a lot of like sexually explicit kinds of like messages that you wouldn't send to a 14-year-old. Like, for example, do you touch yourself? As a 25-year-old woman, like, would you ever like ask someone 10 years younger like this kind of questions? And so there were just so many like sexual innuendos in those kind of conversations that I think at 14, 15, you wouldn't really know until you tell someone that you trust about them.
Before we start off with today's episode, I'd like to give a big shout out to IMDA for teaming up with us for 3 episodes on digital wellness as part of their Digital for Life campaign. What does digital wellness mean? How can we practice good online habits, ensure cyber safety, and reduce our risks to online harms? The Digital for Life movement aims to enable the community and citizens of all ages to embrace digital learning as a lifelong pursuit. With digital as a new way of life, we need to know what to do and how to take care of our digital wellness. We can make the internet a better, safer, and kinder place for everyone. To find out more, visit go.gov.sg/digital wellness. Hi guys, thanks for joining us on the show today. Very excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. So we are Flag You Are It, Singapore's first campaign on online child grooming. And so I'm Stephanie, I'm the branding lead of Flag You Are It.
Hi, I'm Vinice. I'm the social and strategy lead at Flag Your It. We first started out the campaign in 2019 as part of our final year project for university. We wanted to raise awareness of online child grooming in Singapore, specifically for youths aged 13 to 17. So from our research, we found that this group was actually the most at risk at this kind of topic because I think firstly they're at the age where they are very curious, puberty, they're very curious about relationships, about love, and they're also at the age where they're a bit rebellious. They don't really want to tell their parents about who they're talking to online and things like that. So they're very at risk, and we wanted a platform where they can step up to talk about such pressing issues that schools don't really cover as well.
So how would you define online child grooming?
So online child grooming is actually when a predator befriends with a minor in order to sexually exploit that child. Yeah, so that's like the definition that we go by for Flag You Are It. So why online grooming in particular? I think because some of us, like us personally and our friends have encountered groomers in the past. Actually, one of our team member, her friend was groomed before, that was back in secondary school. So her friend started talking to this stranger online, and that stranger was like at least 10 years older than, back then, secondary school. And so, I think the reaction that she and that the friend group had was that it's very negative, and as a result, that friend kind of like isolated herself away from like that friend group, and subsequently she was like sexually assaulted by that groomer. And it's only because, we were not educated about it, we were not aware that like this is, something that would happen to us. And I think it's definitely a topic that needs to be talked about. Yeah.
Through our research, we actually found that 1 in 3 youths went to speak to a stranger online, and then they eventually went to meet them offline. And 68% of youths actually has some sort of unwanted sexual contact from a stranger before. Yeah, so that was quite shocking for us because it's quite a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it's also very hard to tell from the get-go whether you are talking to a groomer or not, because like the whole process is very complex. Groomers have become so evolved in the way that they approach their victims. It always starts off very innocently. Like the first move of the groomer is always like, it always seems harmless. Like it can be like via a friend request or like a follow Instagram, or like complimenting you. It's definitely very complex, and so the groomers really like spend time building that emotional connection with you, to make sure that, you know, you are like isolated from your loved ones and friends, so that eventually it is a lot easier to groom you into a victim. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm curious to know, so because you mentioned that 1 in 3 of the people that you guys have interviewed ended up meeting the people that they made friends with online, right? And I think the first thing that comes to mind is that, like, I have made a lot of friends online as well in the past like year. I think especially since COVID and stuff like that, right? Yeah, I think my question was like, what are some of the experiences that maybe you have heard that, you know, might sound like something that maybe we have gone through? So I don't know. Yeah.
So we've known this very prominent victim that actually contributed a lot of stories to us. She told us that she has actually been groomed for 2 years, concurrently ongoing, and she didn't know until she was much older, actually until we spoke about this FYP, and it happened when she was like 14. So you can imagine, like, it took 10 years to realize what it actually is. So she actually know of this guy. This guy was from one of her organizations that she is very active in, and he is a very sort of older brother figure to her. He gives her a lot of advice. He, you know, treats her like a little sister lah. And they continue the conversation online every single day. They talk a lot. They talk like as if they sort of like a couple. They sweet talk and everything. And she doesn't know what's going on, but she just follows because as in emotions get the better of her lah, and she doesn't know better also because she didn't tell anybody of the relationship, and she just thought like, okay, this guy is just giving me advice, his older brother. And in real life, when they actually meet, he pretends to not know her. So that's a very big red flag for someone you know lah. Yeah.
But I guess at that time, you know, when you are, you know, 14 years old, you don't really know like what are like the red flags. And so, you know, when we talk about, you know, what is online child grooming, we are doing a campaign on this. And then she was like, oh my God, let me show you like some of the messages that he sent me. And then when we read through them, they are like, there were so many red flags.
Let's say we go back to the definition of grooming, right? There is the intention from that other party to kind of like sexually exploit this individual. But I mean, I'm not to trivialize the whole matter, but it doesn't sound as if like it's a situation where he
started the whole conversation in order to...
Correct. It sounds as if like this guy also had his own
problems.
I mean, very frankly, we're all like young people trying to figure things out also, right? So I guess the question is, where's the danger in that? Yeah.
I think like, you know, I think when we were looking through at those messages, you know, specific to that story, we really saw a lot of like sexually explicit kinds of like messages that you wouldn't send to a 14-year-old. Like, for example, do you touch yourself? As a 25-year-old woman, like, would you ever like ask someone 10 years younger like this kind of questions? And so, you know, there were just so many like sexual innuendos in those kind of conversations that I think at 14, 13, 15, you wouldn't really know what they are until you tell someone that you trust about them.
So this was a situation where after that she just swept under the rug for many years until she met you guys, is it?
Yeah, and in fact, we realized that, you know, that groomer actually impacted her, even though they stopped talking, you know, a few years back, but the decisions that she made is still influenced by him. And so, for example, like the degree that she chose, it was because he was in that degree as well, and like he's now working in the same industry as she is. And yeah, like even the music that she listens to was influenced by him as well. And so, you know, like, and these are just some of like the like at the top of mind, like what she could like say, oh, actually like it's because of like him. So, you know, you never really know like what is the impact or the depth of the kind of effects that like you have as like a victim.
Actually, I have a similar story to share. So like when I was, I think 15, then I was very active. So I was in band, like one of those like band nerds in like secondary school. There was this forum for band members in Singapore. And the thing about the band scene is, or I guess like with a lot of CCAs with legacy, right? A lot of alumni come back, or a lot of people stay in the scene till like they're much older, because like there's a bit of like, you know, if I'm good at my instrument, I'll come back and teach the juniors, that kind of thing. But it's also like, that leads to what I found to be a whole ton of grooming. So it's like, I don't know if you, like in a lot of these CCAs, it's not even like a strange occurrence to find like an alumni dating like a secondary school girl or something like that. So for me, it was like he was like a 20-year-old, whereas I was like still 15. And the thing about it is that I think that when you are in that situation, you never really think about yourself as being groomed. And I think it's similar to your friend, like not being able to even like accept that this is something that could happen to me. Because for me, it was like a relationship. It wasn't like he pretends not to know me or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think it's more like you end up feeling like, oh, okay, this person's important, or like, you know, this person is someone I look up to. And then like when they ask you to do certain things, then you're just like, well, I mean, like, yeah, sure, this might just be the next step, or that, yeah. So I think like that's always the thing, right? So I remember like afterward when I got into like another relationship and I was telling him about like my ex and things like that, he was just like, Kim, this is grooming. And then I couldn't even accept it. Like he told me like point blank, you know that this is classified as grooming. But at the point of time, I think I wasn't ready to accept it yet. I wasn't mature enough to like think about that whole situation in that way. I was just like, no, but he was a really nice guy, you don't understand. And I think like now that I look back and I can see like, yeah, okay, I did make those choices, and it's not like he didn't let me make those choices, but I was too young to like have the kind of like agency to make that choice properly, you know? And I think that's the like strongest thing, because it's always like a grey area, like you guys were saying, right? You said it's complicated, and like I can say I was lucky, like I wasn't pushed beyond what I was willing to do, you know what I mean? But yeah, some people aren't so lucky, and some people like don't have that ability to kind of like put a stopper to like the person who may be like pushing them on. Yeah, so I think it is very difficult to like define.
Just to jump in on that,
Yeah.
like thinking now also, like there are many instances where I feel like I'm quite lucky. I never kena, but like there are people within my life that has encountered this, and like I think my cousin was one of them. There was an older like male teacher who was quite young-ish, like mid something, right? And then quite good looking. He noticed and like doted on her, right? And like my cousin is very intelligent, right? So
Yeah.
I think you kind of like, it's a situation where it's also like you are not stupid and you know that you're not stupid, but like there's just something special about like somebody who's like older and then like quite good looking, you know, taking notice on you. You're like the chosen one, right? I guess. So it's tricky. Like there's that whole element of like emotional.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you're still exploring that whole part of yourself, like what I would like as an individual person, you know, like all these things, and it's like, I mean, it's very easy to get caught up with it, which is, I guess, why so many people become victims.
I was like, we remember a lot, but like, is this true? Is this accurate?
Yes, yeah. This is like great storytelling. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think my question was gonna be, and maybe I can share with us, going off of Kim's story, right? Like, not a lot of young people, I would say, or even like us, find ourselves in a situation where we think that we are the victims. Nobody thinks of themselves as a victim, right? So how at risk are young people to like getting groomed? You know, if I would
If they
assume
don't
that,
know.
yeah. What are the risk factors, I guess? Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know how much they're at risk, and a lot of victims tend to blame themselves. So I think, like what you said, you couldn't accept the fact that you were groomed because you firstly didn't know of the definition. But after that, because you think that, oh, I was consented to, like I consented to the relationship, everything was my choice, it's my decision. But grooming is a lot more complex than that, because they first want to get your consent. That's the tricky part, because they want to be your friend first. They want to make sure that you trust them. Then they go on to, you know, do their manipulation very subtly. So it's a very difficult thing to point out. I think a lot of youths reached out to us also to ask, like, is this grooming? Is that grooming? We cannot really say for sure as well, because firstly, I think we're not the like counselors. Then we always refer them to like a proper counselor lah. But I think one good thing for youths to do, right, is to step up and even acknowledge that this is a thing. Like, this is a pressing issue that they need to learn about. So then they are in a better position to really pinpoint what are the red flags. Is this a possible grooming situation? And then be a lot more critical in terms of who they meet online, who they talk to, and then better pick out the red flags, I would say. And I think that's our whole aim of the campaign as well, like flag your it, right? It's literally telling you to flag it out and then tell somebody, like maybe tell to your friend about someone that you're talking to. Then that person is also in a better position to see like how your conversation flows. Is there anything that seems off a bit? And because they're not the victim, so they don't have like the love goggles ongoing, right? Yeah.
Love goggles.
Yeah.
I really like this. It sounds less like a situation where people are like, don't use like social media and make friends on social media. It sounds more like a relationship
Make
management.
informed decisions on social media.
Definitely.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know. So it didn't occur to me that flag your it means that like flag out the like red flags. Really stupid. But like, what are some common like red flags? Yeah.
Before I jump into that, for groomers, they are never age, race, or gender specific, you know. I think first of all, it's really important to like understand that they are not like your 50-year-old Tico Pace. Like they can be like 20 years old or they can be 50, who knows. For our campaign at least, based on our research, we kind of like created like these 4 archetypes of groomers. The first archetype of groomers, what we call is the secret center. So sometimes, like what the name suggests, they may give you a lot of things just to really build that emotional like connection, that positive association with the groomer.
Yeah.
And the second,
Sorry, like incidents are coming back to me as
right?
you say it.
Oh my. Okay. Yeah. And like the second archetype, what we call is the Prince Charming or the Princess Charming, because they are not gender specific. Is when the groomer really shower you with like compliments. You know, like just try to be your friend, your best friend even. And I think that the third one we call is the fisher. So that normally starts off like at the beginning of like a grooming process where the person really like fish out like overly personal information, like oh, do you have a boyfriend, like just straight off right off the bat asking you that. Yeah, really finding out like what are some, you know, just to find out some ways to be your friend. Really, you know, as I said, build that friendship first.
Infringing boundaries.
Definitely, yeah. And so the last one, what we call is the blackmailer. So that's when like the blackmailer really tries, after building that relationship, after sharing secrets with you, the blackmailer will isolate you from your friends and loved ones, will, you know, try to like blackmail you into like doing certain stuff because, you know, you guys have already shared that bond. And sometimes you may not even like know that you're being blackmailed because that groomer might just evoke like, might guilt trip you into doing something, and you may or may not know what the groomer is doing. Yeah.
And on the contrary, we have 4 signs to identify like whether this person is a potential victim. I think firstly you have secret Santa, right? We also have a secret keeper. Yeah, so these people, they don't really want to tell their friends anything about whoever they're speaking to online. Sometimes you notice, but then sometimes they like sort of distance themselves after a while. So I think that also happened for the friend of our teammate who was groomed in secondary school. You know, you try to give advice, and then sometimes they speak up about, oh, I met this guy, but after you try and say like, oh, maybe there's a red flag, that's something that you need to look into or be careful about, then they may think that you are going against them. So then they try and stay away from telling you about more things because they know that you won't approve of it. Yeah. Then the second one is when you're sexually matured, beyond your age range. So I think a lot of times at 13 to 17, I don't think you will know a lot about very sexual things or sexual, like you don't catch up on sexual innuendos that fast. But as groomers, they will slowly introduce these kind of topics to you, different kind of terminology. Like, do you touch yourself? Have you ever watched this kind of porn before? Things like that. And they act off as like they're very curious about you as a person, but actually they're just looking for like a kink or something. Yeah. Then the third one, emotional roller coaster. So these people are like the victims themselves. In their everyday lives, you see that, you know, they may get into a lot of mood swings. When you speak to them, sometimes they may feel like very happy one day, and then suddenly they may get very affected because of something that someone said to them. The last one is the age gap. I think this is quite a grey area also, because I think a lot of people have came up to us to say like, a lot of normal relationships also have a large age gap. How do you really know that it's grooming? We're not trying to say that all like big age gaps relationships are red flags, but it's definitely one of the common signs that we see in grooming relationships lah. Yeah, I think it's also much easier for a groomer much older than you to sort of get your trust. Yeah, just because you know more.
Especially when the groomer is an adult and the victim is a minor, that's illegal.
Oh, yeah.
Just putting it out there.
Yeah. We're taking a short break. Something Private is a podcast produced under local media publisher Our Grandfather's Story. This episode was made in collaboration with our friends at IMDA to talk about online harms and taking care of our digital wellness. Check out go.gov.sg/digital wellness to find out more. Now back to the episode. There have been, on that note, right, there have been a lot of like recent articles I'm sure you have seen in the last like couple of months.
Last year alone.
Correct. Correct. I'm wondering what are some of your thoughts about teenagers who have been like sexually assaulted, then they go to court and then like an older parent or like an adult like was found guilty, like either molesting them or like sexually like assaulting them.
I think that it's a good thing that the media is reporting it a lot more compared to last time. I think after we've done this campaign, we realized that actually I think a lot more people are comfortable with sharing their story and actually standing up for themselves nowadays. I think also it has to do with the Me Too movement and everything. A lot of youths are also actually a lot more woke than we thought lah. I think throughout our whole campaign, right, when we speak to youths, we realize that, oh my god, they're damn smart nowadays. You know, they know what is grooming. They experience so much in life, like just through online platforms, right? Yeah, and they're just not afraid to stand up for themselves and give an opinion on things, right? I think one incident that surprised us was actually a boy in secondary school. He actually messaged us to say like, actually I have been speaking to a girl who is maybe like 2 years younger than me in secondary school. Is that considered grooming? I'm very scared to like,
This baby.
yeah. They're very scared to cross boundaries, so he's like a bit more careful. He wants to be a true gentleman lah. So
Okay.
very nice.
So sweet.
Yeah. So what they replied? You're like,
from the situation, it sounds like it was just a very friendly relationship. We told him like, normal teasing, you know, not teasing, but like in a friendship, playful manner. That's fine, as long as you know what her boundaries are and you make sure that you don't cross it. Yeah.
Actually, when we're doing research, we realized that there's not a lot of like local stories on grooming. Even when we were surveying, interviewing teenagers, like what are they learning about grooming in their CCE lessons, they said that, actually I don't really remember, and even like the examples that they used were like from the UK, was basically overseas examples and not like local stories. So I think like that's really where Flag Your It really kind of like gained traction in like the way that like all of our stories are all like, unfortunately they're all Singapore based, and that really affected how like how people view grooming as an issue. Like, like there are so many stories and we should pay more attention to this. Yeah.
when you learn about like the situation overseas, right, like how grooming is overseas, right, it's culturally different and like culturally specific to there, right? Like a groomer in the UK wouldn't be like a groomer in Singapore. You know what I mean? So I think it's very interesting because when we were doing research about online grooming, also couldn't find a single example. So
It does sound like there is a need for like more stories based in Singapore, because I mean, it's not like as if you asked me about my experience, I would like not tell you about it. It's one of those things where, you know, you just need that platform to share, right? And I think like it's really great that you guys made that platform, and it's so cute that, you know, like a 15-year-old is also wondering, Sec 4 is wondering whether or not he himself is grooming. So it's like, I think that I don't want to say like everybody is a terrible person, you know. I don't think that groomers all intend to like sexually abuse like young minors or whatever. It just so happened that like, you know, some of them, like that's where they find themselves in lah. And I think like, yes, they still make that choice to kind of like pursue that relationship, even though they know that this person is like much younger. So obviously that's where the issue lies. But I think it's also like, the more you know, so like even for both sides, the groomers and the groomed, right? Like I think it will benefit everyone to know, like, okay, if this story is like pertaining to like secondary school kid, you kind of understand like where they are at. You know, it's like just before O levels, they're under a lot of pressure. You know, this kind of like attention from another person, like an older person, like really can help them out of like that one track kind of like, because they're just like focusing on exams kind of thing. So it's like yeah, with the context of Singapore, it really does help people kind of like put themselves in that story and then say like, okay, that could have been me. Very easily that could have been me, you know? Yeah.
You mentioned about like, you know, exams and everything. I also think that that's also kind of like a common situation that happens, like how people in school nowadays, they're like super stressed, and as a result they kind of like rant online, and sometimes groomers just happen to like come across, you know, the black screen, and then you have like a paragraph of
Oh my god, no one is like,
words.
oh, very small.
Yeah, and so like that's really how you know, like groomers start to like you know, like slide into your DMs and like start a relationship with you. Yeah, and so definitely like common situations like being bullied, being isolated from your friends, being stressed, you need someone out of your life to rant to. And that's like I would say that in Singapore, that's like some of like the more common stories that we have heard.
I just wanted to add also, and I think this is because it is similar to like sexual harassment, right? I like that the boy came to ask you guys this question, but I also do think that like, as we are talking about the fact that like we need to reflect for groomers also, they need to reflect on whether like what they're doing is potentially problematic, right? I think it's not, like you all said, not gender specific, right? That it's something that not just men do, right? And I think that's super, super, super important to kind of note. We're not trying to blame like any gender here.
With groomers not being gender specific, right? There was a story where this girl was groomed by a woman online, and the woman was actually in cahoots with her husband to get information from young gamers online. Yeah, so they asked for like family photos and things like that. But
Her address. Yeah.
And I don't think they're from Singapore, but it's someone that they met online from another country. So I'm not sure what the reason behind like getting all these personal information is for, but it's quite sick lah. And she only managed to stop it because her mom found out about it. I think social media just accelerated or give groomers a lot more platforms to reach out to the victims. I think in the past, you kind of need to know the person offline first, then you go on to maybe text them. But as of now, you know, you just swipe a random person and then you can just slide into their DMs. And people are very, like teens nowadays, they're very open to reply also. I mean, back in our days, we also want to make friends, right? Every person that we meet, it's just interesting to start a conversation with lah.
So there's so many social media platforms out there. So what we say are like some of the characteristics of like specific social media platforms that some people can look out for in terms of like grooming.
So for TikTok, I think it's a lot easier for strangers to see your videos, especially on the For You page. And so, you know, if certain videos go viral, you may receive like comments or messages from strangers, and I think like definitely be on a lookout for them, and definitely be critical of like the kind of messages that you receive. It's fine if it's like a friendly, like, oh, nice dance or like nice content. I think that's fine. But when they start to cross your boundaries, then maybe block and report.
I think another platform where we constantly want to seek out or actively seek out relationships or like strangers to talk to is definitely Omegle. I think Omegle has been a platform that suddenly like revived. Suddenly a lot of people, I think it's because of COVID also, then people just want some social interaction and they can find that very easily on Omegle. So then you talk to different kind of strangers, and even though you skip them quite fast, you can still decide to continue the conversation on some other platform, right? Like maybe like WhatsApp or Instagram if you get their handle. So just need to be a little bit more careful in terms of who you decide to continue the conversation with, and then of course as you go along, building that friendship, be aware of the red flags. Then for Instagram, Snapchat, they're very visual platforms where you want to put out your best front or sometimes your most vulnerable front as well. So it's easy for groomers to pick that kind of personal information out from you, and then use that to slide into your DMs.
You know, sometimes it's not just strangers, but people that you actually know. So yeah, just be aware of the kind of conversations that you have.
So do you think that, because I mean with the prevalence of social media and things like that, I think people also take to social media to kind of like express their like kind of, I don't know, they're just upset or like, you know, they're having a bad day or things like that. And I think like we were talking about like O-levels, but obviously it's not just exams lah. It's also like, could be anything, right? The stress of living in a pandemic or whatever. So like, do you think that that also leads to, you know, more people kind of like, I mean, it has both the positive and negative, right? It leaves room for like your friends to check in on you, but it also kind of leaves room for like people to kind of like, I guess, identify this as like a vulnerability.
Yeah, and I think it's also very hard for you to kind of like report and block this one person, because like that groomer can just create like a new account.
It's tough lah. I think it's difficult. On that train of thought, right? Like, what are some of the ways that you guys have can advise, I guess, the youth to be a bit more mindful, and then also for like maybe the people in their lives, right? If you know somebody who's young, like how do we help them out?
I think firstly, don't be afraid to talk about relationships online. Find someone you trust lah. Can be a friend, can be an older sister, can be a counselor or teacher. Don't be afraid to explain your situation, your worries, your concerns. And I think a lot of victims are scared to speak out because they're scared of being judged. Like, oh, I was the first one who, you know, wanted to be in this relationship. So am I at fault, you know?
And sometimes it's curiosity also, is right. It's like you just want to like chat to strangers online. It's fun. I mean, there's a reason why Omegle is so popular, right? So
that's why I think education is so important, because next time then you will know what kind of dangers you are facing, and you catch yourself in that situation before it gets even deeper lah.
And I think like we are also not trying to say like don't talk to strangers, because that is definitely not our key message. Like what we're trying to do is, okay, like these are some of like the red flags that you should look out for, and these are some of the signs these are some of the stories, these are some of the signs from victims who are willing to like speak about their experiences. So you should make your own informed decision whether, you know, you want to pursue this ambiguous relationship or not. So I think like the whole point of like Flag Your 8 is also to encourage that critical thinking in our youths as well.
I think a lot of parents or older folks lah, when we were exploring our topic and issue, right, they were asking, how come you don't educate the parents instead? You know, the parents play such a big part in the children's lives, and in fact, actually, a lot of parents come down to an exhibition also to ask like, so what should I do as a parent, you know? But from our research and speaking to the teens themselves, they don't want to really, a lot of people are not very close to their parents in terms of these kind of sensitive topics. So it's very hard for them to speak up about it. So that's why we wanted to really emphasize on the peer-to-peer social community first before you decide to go to a parent or someone much older to seek proper advice.
And I can totally understand, because like you won't be telling your parents at 14.
I'm meeting a friend who I met online.
Correct. My boyfriend, in fact, like
we are together now.
Correct, that we met online, right? So, but I am curious, you know, for the sake of like people of our generation who are going to be parents in future, right? How do we then like create like a safe space for the younger people to come to us to be like, I'm in trouble, you know?
I think like first of all, if you were a parent and you were to hear like your child talking to someone online, the first thing is to not take their phone away. I think like that is, I don't know why, but like that is something that teenagers are very scared of, that their phones are being taken away. And I think like even as adults, we cannot live without our phones. So I think it's also like, you know, for phones in that aspect, definitely I think also create that trust and you know, build that kind of rapport with your child or children about that it's okay to like tell your parents like stuff. And I think for parents, it's also, you also cannot like overreact. I think I think it's like, I think overreaction might do more harm than good. Even if you were to get over this one incident in the future, if there were more incidents to happen, your child may or may not come to you.
I think a lot of parents, their first reaction is to, okay, stop talking to strangers online. But you know, that's not realistic, right? Yeah. So we always encourage parents to come in from a very casual standpoint, you know, open the conversation at dinner time, like, how are your friends? What are your relationships like? Tell me more about your friends. What kind of platforms do you like to use? You know, have you made any friends online? And then segue into a bit more deeper conversation.
And I think it's also not about like, it's not about like, then don't make friends online and like stop talking to this person, right? Which I think a lot of people on TikTok now are like, reactive parenting, don't scold your child, right? You want to have them open up to you and then like guide them, like, okay, you are making friends, right? But like, what kind of person is this, right? We judge them based on their character.
I just want to add. So I just finished Obama's book, A Promised Land, right? And he had this quote about how to make sure that his daughters pick men that are good, that are like just good people. And then what he said was that you have to show them every single day, like the way you treat like your wife. And that's like the best way to show your daughters this is how you should be treated. Because like there's no other way to kind of tell them. When you go up to your kid and you say like, no, you shouldn't be treated that way, they're not going to understand like what that means, because like it's such a, they only see it from like a very micro perspective, right? But then when you see it like as an everyday act of like, you know, this is how women should be respected, this is how women should be treated, then that's how you know, these are safe and healthy ways in which you should like operate and function. Then that's how you know like, okay, this is how I slowly learn, like how kids can slowly learn, like, okay, this is how I can be treated.
It's a lot of things, right? It's like teaching your son how to be discerning in terms of like the people that they talk to online and maybe like chat a bit more first. I don't know. It's so many things, right? I think, but yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you really cannot prevent like everything from happening. And I don't think that's your job. Even as a parent, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm sure that as a parent, it's impossible to protect them from everything that will happen. But it's also like teaching them to make informed decisions. Like, that's like what you said, right? So like, if these are things that people go through and like it's available for you to like know about and learn, then you know that, okay, this is a possibility and I should be avoiding it, you know? It's like,
And I think so on that note, I mean, besides the parents, right? Let's say like you are an individual who is a victim of like grooming, right? I'm wondering what are some of the steps that you can take to kind of like protect yourselves.
Tell your friends about who you're speaking to online. I think even for us, when we talk to our friends, we tend to tell them about our other friends. So in a very casual manner, it doesn't have to be a relationship. They will have that third party perspective of telling you like, is there a red flag in the relationship? Should you cut the person off?
And when you feel that your boundaries are being tested, you should take a step back and like think, okay, like, is this person good for me or not? Is this person respecting my boundaries? And I think that boundaries are very important to knowing whether you are safe or not.
Actually, it's quite important to understand the laws behind online child grooming. I think when we just started our project, I think a month before that, the policies or laws actually have changed to give teens a lot more protection against online harassment.
Previously, the law kind of like protects like minors under 16, and then it was increased to like 18. So you know, if you are like 18 and below and you are groomed, you still can
be protected by the law.
For our Instagram also, we put out some toolkits or guidebooks on what are the laws that are available and who you can reach out to in terms of like legal protection if you ever need to.
It's inevitable that, you know, like we will meet people online and that like, you know, we will make friends online and stuff like that, and like we live in the world of like social media, right? So I guess what are some of your parting thoughts on like how we can be safe and like protect the people that we love, ourselves, and like for parents to also, you know, like be a bit more involved in like their children's lives?
I think firstly, our aim is really to have a close-knitted community so that you get a safe space to voice out about your opinion, even if you don't have close friends that you can speak to or you're a bit shy from it. But for friends themselves, if you realize that your friends are being groomed or you might suspect of a certain situation, always be very open to telling them, maybe ease them into the conversation that, okay, this might be a potential situation that you're facing. These are the avenues that we can seek help from, and I will be there with you to go and, seek out a counselor if you really need someone to chat to. Like, I'm willing to go with you. I think a lot of victims, they're a bit shy to seek help from counselors or therapists if once they find out they're in such situations. And I think for friends, if you've tried a lot of times and the victim still doesn't want to listen to you because they're just so blinded by the situation, right? Then I would say, like, don't give up. Seek professional help if you really cannot handle it on your own also. I think a lot of friends, right, they ask, like, oh my gosh, should I go and confront the groomer myself? I know what he's trying to do,
With good intention.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we try and avoid advising people to do, because you never know what you get yourself into. I'm sure the groomer will know how to manipulate you also as a friend to stop the situation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming down to talk to us and like sharing all your stories. I just want to ask, like, if anybody like realizes that they've been groomed, or like they know that their friend is going through something like this, where can they turn to?
Yeah, so actually our DMs are always open at Flag Your It. So, whenever you have any questions or troubles, like, just drop us a DM. Like, I do remember there was this one time, this Sec 2 girl, she dropped us a DM saying that she realized that her best friend came to school with a hickey, and she knew that the day before she met up with an older online stranger. And so she was like really worried about her friend because, her friend was showing signs of being groomed, like because she saw our posts and everything. And so she was like really worried. And so by the end of the night, we directed her to a touch counselor. So we are not like counselors or anything, but like we are here to listen to you and to direct you to the right hotlines if needed.
You can treat us like we are like the older tete that you can talk to. Not like in a groomer sense, but
No.
like
Not at all.
proper sister. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I
Thank you
think
for
we learned
having
a lot.
us.
Yeah.
Thanks.